Coming up on 5 Minute News. Bolsonaro loses to Lula in Brazil's presidential election. South Korea in mourning as 153 die in Halloween stampede. And in echoes of January 6, Pelosi's attacker was on a mission. It's Monday, October 31. I'm Anthony Davis. 20 years after first winning the Brazilian presidency, Lula da Silva has defeated incumbent Jair Bolsonaro in an extremely tight election that marks an about-face for the country after 4 years of far-right extremist politics. With more than 99% of the votes tallied in the runoff vote, da Silva had 50.9% and Bolsonaro 49.1%, and the election authority said da Silva's victory was a mathematical certainty. It was a stunning reversal for da Silva, whose imprisonment for corruption sidelined him for the 2018 election that brought Bolsonaro, a defender of extreme conservative values, to power. Today, the only winner is the Brazilian people, da Silva said in a speech in a hotel in downtown Sao Paulo. This isn't a victory of mine or the Workers' Party, nor the parties that supported me in campaign. It's the victory of a democratic movement that formed above political parties, personal interests and ideologies, so that democracy came out victorious. Da Silva is promising to govern beyond his party. He wants to bring in centrist and even some leaning to the right who voted for him for the first time, and to restore the country's more prosperous past. Yet he faces headwinds in a politically polarized society where economic growth is slowing and inflation is soaring. South Koreans mourned and searched for relatives lost in the hell-like chaos that killed more than 150 people, mostly young adults, when a huge Halloween party crowd surged into a narrow alley in a nightlife district in Seoul. It remained unclear what led the crowd to surge into the downhill alley in the Itaewon area on Saturday night, and authorities promised a thorough investigation. Witnesses said people fell on each other like dominoes, and some victims were bleeding from their noses and mouths whilst being given CPR. Kim Mi-sung, an official at a non-profit organization, said she performed CPR on 10 people who were unconscious, mostly women, wearing witch outfits and other Halloween costumes. 9 of them were declared dead on the spot. "I still can't believe what has happened. It was like hell," Kim said. As of Sunday evening, officials said 153 people were killed and 133 were injured. Nearly two-thirds of those killed, 97, were women. More than 80% of the dead were in their 20s and 30s, and at least 4 were teenagers. The Ministry of the Interior and Safety said the death count could further rise, as 37 of the injured people were in serious condition. Witnesses said many of the people appeared not to realize the disaster that was unfolding steps away from them. Some, wearing Halloween costumes, continued to sing and dance nearby as others lay lifeless on the ground. At least 20 of the dead were foreigners from China, Russia, Iran and elsewhere. There was 1 American among the dead, the Interior Ministry said. An estimated 100,000 people had gathered in Itaewon for the country's biggest outdoor Halloween festivities since the pandemic began. The South Korean government had eased COVID-19 restrictions in recent months. The man accused of attacking House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's husband carried zip ties with him when he broke into the couple's San Francisco home, in what is the latest parallel to the Capitol riot of January 6, 2021. The attack on the Democratic leader's 82-year-old husband, Paul Pelosi, less than 2 weeks before the November 8 election that will determine control of Congress, as well as key statewide and local offices, was an unsettling reminder of the nation's toxic political climate. With threats to public officials at an all-time high, members of Congress were being urged to reach out for additional security resources, including increased police patrols of their neighborhoods. Police in San Francisco said the assault of Paul Pelosi was intentional, Authorities said the suspect, identified as 42-year-old David DePappy, confronted Paul Pelosi in the family's Pacific Heights home early Friday and demanded to know, "Where is Nancy?" The two men struggled over a hammer before officers responding to a 911 call to the home saw DePappy strike Paul Pelosi at least once, police said. DePappy was arrested on suspicion of attempted murder, elder abuse, and burglary. Nancy Pelosi was in Washington when her husband was attacked at home. She soon returned to San Francisco, where her husband was hospitalized. With Election Day nearing and Donald Trump relentlessly promoting claims he did not lose to Joe Biden in 2020, federal agencies warned on Friday that domestic extremists fueled by election lies pose a heightened threat to the midterms. The Department of Homeland Security and other federal agencies said the greatest danger was posed by lone offenders who leverage election-related issues to justify violence. You can subscribe to 5 Minute News on YouTube with your preferred podcast app. Ask your smart speaker or enable 5 Minute News as your Amazon Alexa flash briefing skill. Subscribe, rate and review online at 5minute.news. 5 Minute News is an Evergreen podcast covering politics, inequality, health and climate, delivering independent, unbiased and essential world news daily.